Now, in a dramatic escalation of US-India trade tensions, Donald Trump imposed 50% tariffs on Indian exports.
Now, this is double the previous rate as India continues to purchase Russian oil. Meanwhile, a sweeping wave of new tariffs from 10% to 50% or more on more than 60 countries is reshaping global markets. Markets are reacting, and India is fighting back.
From the Oval Office, Donald Trump has ruled out the possibility of increased trade negotiations with India, saying, and I'm quoting here, not until it gets resolved, after signing an executive order raising tariffs from 25 to 50% effective 27th of August.
So this is January 6th. These are the
Last headline में visual गलत चला है.
approximately 1,500.
Mr. President, just to follow up on the India tariffs, do you expect increased trade negotiations, since you've announced the 50% tariff?
No, not until we get it resolved.
Now, New Delhi has labelled the move unfair, unjustified and unreasonable, accusing the US of double standards for targeting India, while other buyers of Russian oil, China, Turkey, remain untouched. Prime Minister Modi affirmed his willingness to bear the cost for farmers, fishermen and dairy workers, citing national interest and energy security.
Now, across the globe, U.S. tariffs are surging. A broad structure of 10% to 50% has taken effect against more than 60 countries, with major markets like Brazil, Switzerland facing steep penalties. The U.S. average import tax now hovers around 18.6%, which is the highest since 1930s.
Global markets have taken notice. On the 1st of August, weak job data, just 73,000 jobs added in July, and unemployment up to 4.2% alongside Trump's tariffs, triggered a sell-off across Wall Street and international markets. Still, markets have recovered on bets of Federal Reserve rate cuts and strong earnings reports. Apple's investments helped boost sentiment, though concerns about inflation and supply chain upheaval persist. Analysts warn these tariffs could raise U.S. consumer prices, disrupt global supply chains and chill economic growth as well. All right, to discuss this further, we're now being joined by Johanna LeBlanc from Washington, D.C. She's a national security analyst and foreign relations expert. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, now I want to begin by the statement that Donald Trump had made in response to a question. He had said that there will be no increased trade negotiations, I'm stressing on that here, with India, and I'm quoting here, not until it gets resolved. Now, that's neither here nor there. What we're trying to understand is, does this mean that there needs to be a complete stop when it comes to stop on the trade between India and Russia when it comes to oil? Is that what will lead to further negotiations? Because we do have this 21-day window, which did offer some hope that there may be some negotiations which could help India get a deal in its favor as well. So what is your assessment of this?
Well, what I can tell you is that it's important for India to diversify its trading partners, right? And I think given the unpredictability that exists currently in Washington under this administration as it relates to trade relations, right? But what I think is also important to note is that this administration is committed to ensuring that policies with countries around the world are consistent with the America First policy. As you know, India is a member of BRICS, and the United States does not support such organizations, such group. So I think that when it comes to the imposition of these tariffs, especially when it comes to India, it's a way to force India to reassess and to reevaluate some of its partners around the world. And once India takes certain positions, I think that the United States will be open to negotiate. But I think it's important to note that these trade tariffs are designed to bring countries to the table to negotiate and to ensure there's more alignment with the United States under the America First policy.
And considering that, what kind of negotiations, according to you, would we get to see, if at all, there are talks next?
Well, I think one of them is obviously, with BRICS, there is conversations about de-dollarization. The U.S. government has said and has maintained that if that conversation continues, certain countries will be sanctioned. So I think that if India is able to come to the table and tell Washington, listen, BRICS does not pose a threat to the U.S. dollar, and can actually convince the Trump administration of that, I think that will be a step in the right direction. But I think ultimately what the administration is looking for policy alignment. It's looking to ensure that countries are more aligned. As you know, there's a global war between, not a physical war rather, but a war for power between the United States and certainly China. And in 30 years, it is predicted that China will become more of a superpower. And Marco Rubio himself mentioned that. He said, we can't stop China, but what we can do is we can slow down China. So a lot of these policies and a lot of these negotiations are done in a way to slow down China's increased footprint around the world.
Right, Ms. LeBlanc, just a couple of things that I want to touch on, just clarify here as well. Of course, India did give a measured response to this earlier as well. Speaking of the duplicity that we're seeing playing out when it comes to the EU as well as China, when it comes to tariffs with the United States, also the trade between Russia and the United States, which when Donald Trump was asked about it, he didn't seem to know much about that as well. Now, India in its statement had said that for countries in the EU as well as the United States, this is not a national vital compulsion. And India, of course, it's prioritizing its own national interests. Also, many of the experts have now come out and said that India is not in any sort of a violation when it comes to oil trade with Russia, because it was meant as a price cap, not to limit Russian revenue. That being said, we are seeing this complete U-turn when it comes to relations between the United States and India. Do you think it's going to have a spillover effect into other aspects of this bilateral relationship as well? Because right now what we're seeing is a complete realignment of the BRICS nations as well. They seem to be rallying behind Brazil and India and China as well. So what's your assessment of how things will pan out going forward?
No, but I think your assessment is absolutely correct. As the United States continue to take these very strict measures and the measures that many countries find to be quite unconscionable, it is pushing more and more countries that maybe traditionally were not even working together to forge alliance in order to combat this current administration. But I do think that in spite of the unpredictability that exists under this administration when it comes to trade, tariffs and so on, but I do agree that with this administration, it's more transactional, right? And nothing is permanent. As we know, currently there's litigation in the federal courts to suing the administration for imposing some of these tariffs, and we expect that it will go to the Supreme Court or whatnot. But I think that given the nature of how this current administration operates, it provides a great pathway for better negotiations. And I think as these countries are coming together, they're aligning together, they can actually come together and have a common position on some of these policies that are impacting trade around the world in order to get a more stronger and a more rapid response from the administration.
Absolutely. And on that, I wanted to also like your opinion on the fact that, you mentioned China, that perhaps U.S. wanted to pressure China. In fact, about the reaction that came in after the when Trump said that he's going to impose more sanctions, China actually India has found an ally in China. So do you think that it would rather backfire? This Trump's decision would backfire instead of actually helping in what maybe would have been the opinion or to warn China?
Yeah, and that is precisely the point that I was trying to make. As the United States is imposing some of these trade tariffs, countries are uniting because they're looking to diversify their trading partners because they don't know what the U.S. market would look like. There's a lack of consistency. But I think, though, even in spite of these challenges, it's also opportunities for these countries to come together and negotiate with the United States together, right? I do believe countries have their own sovereignty, they have their own national challenges, their own their own foreign policy objectives. But I think now is an opportunity for countries to rally together and come to the United States with one proposal in terms of how they view the United States should address these various trade policies. Because the reality is that when these tariffs are imposed, somebody's going to have to eat the cost. It's not the companies. In many cases, it's the consumers in the United States or in India or in China or wherever in the world. So real lives are impacted, but it creates an opportunity for better negotiations. But there must be some kind of unity among some of these countries to be successful.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us on the show and giving your opinions. That was Joanna LeBlanc joining us from Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much for having me.